So one of the many odd jobs that needed doing was to try and stain the new piece of wood to be a little bit closer to the rest. So basically it's just some alcohol, and I added some vintage amber color tone and some medium brown, and just messed with the combinations until I got it right. So I decided to get started on the bridge, and so I thought, yeah, let's take the trouble, let's make it out of rosewood. And so I cut out a blank from my antique floorboard that I have, and I was getting all set to do it, and I thought I'd have a little read of the book. And the book says, "Do not use rosewood or ebony." Rather frustratingly, it doesn't say why not. But so maybe it's something to do with the sort of waxy nature of some of these woods that might make it more problematic to hold the strings properly. I don't know. Anyway, so that was a wasted exercise. So it looks like it's going to be a maple bridge, and we'll dye it a dark color when we're done. Well, they all come out fine on that side, but they're all over the place on the back. Or at least I screwed up really one of them badly. So, what to do? I think we keep going. So, I've decided I'm going to fit the fingerboard to the neck before I fit the neck to the body. The book says you fit the neck first and then do it later, but there are reasons why, in my case, because of how this thing fits at the end here, I want to get this done here first and have all that properly lined up. I'll be making a new... Take two. I'll be making a new decorative piece to go on the end here, which I'll mate up with the top. So I need a fixture, a glue setup, so that this thing is all lined up properly, especially with these shoulders. So what I came up with is the following. So these two pegs will assure the shoulders are all aligned. This will then butt up like that. Then I will clamp it right here. I will clamp it right here. I will clamp it right here. I'd really love to put a clamp here as well, but I can't. So I might just use some tape or something. But that's what I came up with so far. Okay, so there we go. Leave this overnight and do the final shaping on the sides tomorrow. After about 10 minutes I will loosen the vise and remove these guys, because I don't want these guys to get inadvertently glued onto the neck. That would be bad. Right, that's that. Excellent. So I think I've got this joint where the pegbox fits to the neck pretty well tuned in, so that's ready for gluing. We then come to one of the anomalies where either I've misunderstood something or there's an error in the drawings in the manual, in the book. Because it says that the the thickness of the wood here should be 9 millimeters, and then you add on your fingerboard, which is another 2, so that's 11. But the dimensions for the nut say the nut should be 8 millimeters high, which clearly is not going to compute because the nut has to stick up above the fingerboard by like 2 mil. So my piece of wood here, or my bone nut blank, is actually 11 mil. So it comes exactly flush with the fingerboard, and so I'm going to have to put some sort of a 2 mil shim underneath it in order for it to have the 2 mil clearance above the fingerboard, so that the strings are clearing and don't buzz. So I shall have to think on how to do that. So I've done a preliminary layout of the nut. String spacing is definitely more challenging than on a guitar, because the string slots are very close together. The string slots are very close together, and the gauges of the strings is again completely different. So since my nut slot file set is in imperial, and none of the strings are marked in terms of gauge, I manually measured each of the strings, and it looks like they go 22 thou, 28, 36 plain, and then 28, 32, 48 wound. And so I had to pick from my set of files the nearest that I had, and that'll do until we actually have the thing strung up, and then we tweak all these slots to get the right string height and so on. There are some minimum bits and pieces I need to do to the actual bowl before I think about putting everything back together. So there's quite a bad opening in the seam here between two of these pieces, where it goes all the way through. You can poke a X-Acto blade all the way through, so I need to fill that, and so that's too wide for super glue, so I think that's going to be some epoxy. Similarly, this seam here, difficult to tell, but it does appear to be open. I hesitate to go poking at it because each of these individual pieces look to be very fragile and would start coming apart, so I think I'll try some medium-sized super glue on this, and if that doesn't work, then we'll do the epoxy. And then the big bang is over here where something was punched all the way through, so I've glued up some of the cracks, and I'll get on to the rest of them, and then we'll see about supporting it from the back so I can put a piece in here later. So the epoxy is set up, but it will be tomorrow before it's hard enough for me to finish it off. So for this damaged portion here, I think the reason this got punctured through is there are 2 braces inside here, and so whatever object this thing hit into, this part here was fully supported by 2 braces, and so it just literally went through right beside the brace. So what that means is, my initial way to see about fixing this is I'm going to put some like purfling from a regular acoustic guitar on the inside, and then I'll fill that with a piece of wood, hopefully that won't look too out of place. Unfortunately, once this piece of purfling is glued in, I'm probably going to have to do various cutting of it to allow room for these braces to actually come in here, because right now they'd be very much in the way. And I'll probably put some of this purfling at various other strategic points around the top, because the way the suit was made, the braces from the top don't really fix to the sides at all, and so it's relying totally on just this thin surface to hold it on, and I'm not sure that's going to be very reliable, so I'll probably just take some of this purfling and add a few little pieces around just to give me that extra insurance. So to glue the neck onto the body, the official way you do it is you put a clamp on the end here, and you clamp it against the back and you push. You basically squeeze these two things together. I'm not comfortable with that, because what I need is for the bottom of that tenon to sit exactly in the bottom of the mortise, so that the plane of the board lines up exactly with the tailpiece. And so I thought the only way to do it, since I can't clamp it that way, is I put a very small long screw to screw it down, and did the old staggered holes, so the hole that goes into the piece underneath is just slightly off to the right, so when you force the screw down it pulls everything that way, and at the same time clamps it down onto the bottom of the mortise, which is the important thing. So that looks good. I checked all the alignment, it looks fine, so hopefully when it comes glue time, that's how that's going to happen. So doing a dry fit of the top, this side looks fine. I think I have no problem lining up this side. However, the other side has been damaged, and so it looks like it's sort of, probably because of the damage to this piece here, the curvature of this has changed, so it bows out here and it's out, and you can see that the top doesn't come all the way out anymore. I had allowed about an extra 1.5 mil here, and it looks like it's just going to be just about right now. We'll see. I can force the bowl to line up, but then the bowl is under stress. I don't really want the bowl to be under any stress. Anyway, it's going to be doable. It just ain't going to be pretty. Maybe I'll start over. Well, gluing the neck on our first attempt was a near disaster, but I managed to get it all apart before it became impossible. So it looks like what happened. Obviously I spent a lot of time getting the neck angle and everything correct here, and the fit was not super tight, but it was, you know, tight enough that it wasn't able to jiggle around. And again, the most critical part was that this sits correctly in the bottom of this groove so that the neck angle is correct. So when I put the tight bond on everything, it seems like whatever wood this is kind of a soft wood. It just expanded like crazy, and so I couldn't get the tenon down into it, and so the glue started to grab, but it started to grab with the neck up at an angle like this. So I managed to get it all apart, take all the glue out of it, and dry it all out again, so I can get it back to where it was, to where it's all lined up properly. And so now I'm left with the quandary that conventional gluing just isn't going to work here. So I'm thinking right now that my only hope of preserving the accuracy of the neck set is if I just use the screw to hold it and then use super glue while it's in there, so that it can't move, basically. Definitely not my preferred way to do it, but after what just happened, I can't see any other realistic approach, because the alternative would be I'd have to cut this slot out a lot wider, and then I'd risk the thing getting out of alignment like it was originally. So we don't want to do that, so I'm going to try that and see how that goes. Well, there really wasn't any way that I could get the ball to properly line up all the way around, because of the damage on the other side. So I decided I'd go halfway around, let that set up, and then tomorrow I'll see what I can do with the other side, when I don't have to worry about this one moving out of alignment. So, as I said, this ain't gonna be pretty, but if I can get it to pluck a note or two, that'll do. So the next day, the tapes are all off, and it is what it is. So in the end, I made a slight change to how I set this up. So rather than have a huge sort of hole around here, I sort of spread the load out all across the side, and I have one hole right here, and then the rest of it is reasonably well lined up. Luckily there's purfling underneath, so I'm not just reliant on the edge for holding it. And I have a feeling that this bowl may have been under a lot of tension when it was originally made, hence it split all the way up along here. Because yeah, if I was to force this bowl to form to the contour of the top, it would be under a lot of stress. As it is, there's a little bit of stress, but not too much. And I'll cosmetically fill in the bits and pieces, and hopefully it won't look too bad. The other side looks just fine. Everything lines up nicely, and I don't think there's anything rattling. So we should be okay. Of course, if when I put the bridge on and string it up, it may just pop right off. In the meantime, we will carry on. So, moving swiftly along, pegbox is glued, and we just wait for that to set up. And then we'll do the nut and the bridge alignment. And so here we have the nut glued into position. Well, there we go. I think that's enough stress for one day. The bridge is located as accurately as I can locate it, and so I'm going to leave that overnight. Normally, of course, you would clamp the bridge onto the top before you put the top on the body. With all the irregularities I'm dealing with here, that wasn't an option, so I don't have any way to clamp the bridge on there. So I'm just hoping that a heavy weight will do it, and we will find out in the morning. So last night I fitted in this little decorative piece, which is I believe called the beard, and that was that for a day's work. This morning I woke up with a bug. So I caught a bug somewhere yesterday, the day before, because I didn't sleep very well, and I woke up with a nice raging fever. So I think productivity will slow down a little bit, because I did start to cut all the slots into nut, and because these string pairs are so close together, for one of them here I busted out the little piece that separates the two strings. You may not be able to see that, but I think there's still enough there to hold the string in place. But yeah, I'm probably not going to do too much on it for the rest of today. I don't know if it shows up on the video, but in between bouts of coughing throughout the day, I managed to put some yellowish stain on the neck and on the peg box, and I also put 1 or 2 coats of shellac on the peg box. Mainly because we're about ready to put strings on this thing, and I figure once it's got strings on it, it might be a while before I do anything else with it. So I may as well have it looking its best before we put a string on it. Well folks, it's got strings on. Still a lot of work to do on tuning the nut here, but I just decided I wanted to get strings on it, even if the tension is loose. And then tomorrow I'll see about tuning it up to pitch. Well, tuning one of these things up to pitch is a whole other world compared to guitars. I've really no experience with nylon strings, and one of the clips I watched on YouTube, the guy said it'll take a while for the strings to settle in. And well, I tried tuning this thing up a couple of hours ago, and yeah, I just assume the strings keep stretching. Anyway, it's close to pitch as I can get it at the moment, and so I think we'll call it a day. We'll call it a wrap. And so for those of you with the stamina, thank you for following along. I hope you found some of it interesting. I certainly did. Took a lot longer than I was expecting, I will admit. But there you go, we're done. So I will pluck a couple of strings so you can hear what it sounds like, and that'll be that. More to come soon. I think we'll be back to the shortwave antenna rotator very, very soon. That's as much as I got for now.